2004 Spider-Man was a sequel to the Spider-Man from 2002. It covers the events that occurred after the prequel. It shows Peter's struggles as both Spider-Man and himself. He struggles to balance his persona as Spider-Man with his alter ego as Peter Parker, and it proved very difficult for him. The inspiration of the movie was from 3 comics. The 1964 comic book titled Dr. Octopus, the 1966 This Be My Destiny, and the 1967 Spider-Man No More. The movie was released in June 30th, 2004, and it grossed $789 million worldwide, becoming the 3rd highest grossing movie that year. It was considered one of the singular most influential superhero movies of all times. In this fanfiction, we would like to explore the possibilities that would occur if Harry never unmasked Peter Parker as Spider-Man. How would this story arc have gone? Sit back and allow me to take you through a cinematic journey. After Dr. Octopus had sabotaged the controls of the train, him and Spider-Man were fighting on. He left Spider-Man to save it, using the situation as a distraction to save his strength. Spider-Man struggled to save the train and was able to. He then fainted afterwards, and while he was down, the passengers had seen his face, but promised to keep his secret. As he came through, Dr. Octopus returned and attacked him. The passengers tried to protect him, but failed. Dr. Octopus then knocked him unconscious and took him in binds to Harry in exchange for the tritium. Dr. Octopus then told Harry he had Spider-Man now, and he was going to make his goals come through, and left. Harry kept Spider-Man in a chair and watched him as anger swelled in him. He took a dagger and prepared to unmask him and then kill him. But halfway through, he gave up and decided to let him wake up. He wanted to hear his excuse. He wanted to know why he killed his father. As soon as Spider-Man came through, he noticed he was bound to a chair, and Harry stood in front of him with a dagger and a scowl on his face. Harry then interrogated him, asking him why he had killed his father. But Spider-Man told him that he didn't kill Osborn, and tried to explain everything that happened to Harry, telling him that his father was the Green Goblin. Harry was dumbfounded, and found it hard to believe that his father was the Green Goblin. He screamed at Spider-Man that he was lying. There was no way he could believe that his father was a supervillain. But then the butler came out of the shadow and confirmed Spider-Man's story, and told Harry that everything Spider-Man had said was actually true, and that Spider-Man never killed his father. He was sure because he was there when Spider-Man had brought and saw Osborn died in his arms. Harry was in anger and threw the dagger in his hands into a mirror. It shattered, exposing the secret room where Osborn had kept his Green Goblin equipment, reinforcing the fact that everything Spider-Man had said was true. Harry broke down in tears and cried. He couldn't believe that this was who his dad had turned out to be. Spider-Man tried to comfort him and then convinced him to tell him where Dr. Octopus's secret lab was. He told Harry to help him save Mary Jane in the city before it was too late. Peter stood back up and undid the ropes that held Spider-Man, freeing him. Then he told them that the hidden lab was at the waterfront, as Spider-Man leaped on the window about to him. Harry called him by name and told him to save Mary Jane. As that moment, Peter paused at the window and asked, why is he calling him Peter? Harry told him he knew he was Peter. He had been his friend since they were kids. He knew what Peter's shadow looked like, and he knew instantly when he saw him up close that he was Peter. Peter then removes his mask and faces his friend and told him that he would do everything in his power to rescue Mary Jane and save the city. Peter arrived at the doctor's lair and attempted to rescue Mary Jane discreetly, but was soon discovered by the doc's arms and immediately attacked him, slamming him on the wall and hitting him from his head. This rendered Peter unconscious, and he got captured by the doctor. Peter woke up next to Mary Jane, captured and beaten, while the doctor continued to work on his plans. Peter then decided that he was going to reveal his identity, and maybe that was going to help get the doctor to reason with him. So he screamed and told the doctor that he was Peter. Surprising, but Mary Jane and Dr. Octavius, but this didn't stop the doctor. He told Peter that it made no difference that he was Peter. It was too late, and nothing was going to change. But Peter continued to beg the doctor to see reason. There was no guarantee that the fusion was going to work, and he was going to end up killing everyone in the city. The doctor told Peter that this didn't matter to him, as there was nothing left to protect in New York, and that it was a small price to pay for the greater good of mankind. As he and Dr. Octavius talked, the Green Goblin appeared. Peter just knew that it had to be Harry. What was Harry doing in this dangerous situation? But he kept Dr. Octavius talking to distract him. Harry then tried to discreetly save Mary Jane, but he was also soon discovered and an altercation ensued. He threw a pumpkin bomb to stop the doctor as he attacked. As the doctor tried to shield himself, Peter used the opportunity to free himself in this distraction. Angry, the doctor reached for the switch and turned on the machine. Immediately, chaos broke out, and the nuclear reactor began to suck everything around it into itself as fuel. Spider-Man freed Mary Jane and tried to help get her away, but Dr. Octopus reached for him and grabbed him as he fought the Green Goblin. As they fought, Harry also revealed himself as they struggled and tried to reason with the doctor. He then tried to tell Dr. Octopus that he needed to give up. He didn't have to die like the way Norman Osborn died. As they struggled to save themselves, the building and the platform crumbled around them. The doctor finally saw the folly of his plans and agreed to give up, but the problem was that there was no way to stop the nuclear fusion. They needed to collapse the platform. As they tried to remove the pillars that kept the nuclear reactor stable, the doctor grabbed both Harry and Peter and pushed them far away. He held the pillars with all his arms and pulled. He told them that it was too late for him, but they didn't need to die for his mistakes. He then collapsed the platform. The pillars, the machine, everything came down. But Peter would not let him die. He asked Harry to fly up with his glider, while Peter connected a web to the doctor and pulled him out of the wreckage, saving his life. Soon the police arrived, and Dr. Octopus allowed the police to take him away. Everything had ended, and the three friends were reunited, and then Peter revealed to Mary Jane that he had feelings for her, but he couldn't be with her because being with her meant that she was going to always be in constant danger because of him. He then took her back to John, whom had proposed to her and was going to be married to her in a few days. The day was Mary's wedding, and Peter was in the house sulking while he heard a knock on the door. It was Harry, and he told Peter to get in the car and that he needed to go for a ride, rather than allowing him to sulk. He drives Peter to the church where Mary was getting married. Peter asked him what they were doing there, and Harry immediately told Peter that he wasn't just going to let Mary go like that. He needed to fight for her with all his heart, because he had always seen her as the girl of his dreams. He agreed with Harry, and as he stepped out of the car onto the steps that led to the entrance of the church, he saw Mary racing out of the church and onto him as she ran out. As she fell, he grabbed her as she smiled at him. They both started laughing and began to kiss. As they did, there was a commotion behind them, and voices as the congregation ran out to find where the bride was going. They both ran into Harry's car, and he drove off with them. As they went, she told him that she was willing to accept the risks of him being Spider-Man, and she would rather live an exciting life than to live a life without him. As they looked deeply at each other and kissed, they heard police sirens in the distance. Mary Jane nodded her head, encouraging him to save the day. Peter told Harry to step on it, and Harry did with all pleasure, speeding off towards the sounds of the police siren. Well, that's all for this fanfiction where Peter was never unmasked by Harry. We all know that in the movie had ended tragically with the death of Dr. Octopus and enmity between Peter and Harry. But if Harry had been able to listen to Peter's side of the story and never unmasked him, things went much better, and Harry became a proper hero just like his friend Peter. Do you think this movie would have gone like this, or would an alternative idea would have happened if Harry never unmasked Spider-Man? Would Dr. Octopus have survived with the combined effort of Harry and Peter? Well, that's all for now. Let me know in the comments, what do you think of this fan fiction, and what do you think would have happened? Share with me your thoughts on this, and let me know which What If MCU fan fiction are you interested in seeing next. Until then, take care and stay safe.